I'm Anil Kumar. Welcome to this test on Sine Law and Cosine Law. I've taken up 4 questions from previous test papers. I hope they will help you to prepare for your own test. Question number 1. Determine the greatest angle in a triangle with sides 5 cm, 6 cm and 7 cm. Question 2. Mark is a landscaper who is creating a triangular planting garden. The homeowner wants the garden to have 2 equal sides and contain an angle of 135 degrees. Also, the longest side of the garden must be exactly 5 meters. Determine the area and perimeter of the garden. Question number 3. 2 ships A and B with underwater sonar have located the wreckage W of an old ship on the sea floor. The ships are on the opposite side of the ship. When the distance AB between them is 8,000 meters, the angle of depression to the wreck is 18.5 and 56.5 respectively. To the nearest meter, determine the depth of water above the wreck. Question number 4. So let me just push this page a bit. A line from the point P, 30, intersects the circle x square plus y square equals to 169 at points A and B. Determine the length of the chord AB if the line makes an angle of 160 degrees with the positive x-axis. I'd like you to pause the video, answer these 4 questions, and then look into my suggestions. Now, let me take these questions one by one. Question number 1. Determine the greatest angle in a triangle with the sides 5 cm, 6 cm, and 7 cm. So let's make a triangle. So in this triangle, we'll write 3 sides as 5, 6 and 7. We need to find the angle. Let's say this is 5 centimeter, this is 6 centimeter, and this is 7 centimeter. When we say determine the greatest angle in a triangle with sides all this, greatest angle will always be opposite the side of maximum length. Right, so we are looking into this angle. Let's call this angle as A and the triangle as ABC. Since we are given 3 sides, we are going to use cosine law, correct? So it is a case of cosine law. Let me write down. Since we are given 3 sides. The other case where you always use cosine law is side, angle and side, correct? Now, you can use directly the angle formula, but let me write the standard formula, which is 7 square is equal to these 2 squares sum, 5 square plus 6 square, minus 2 times 5 times 6 times cos of angle A. Now that is one way of writing this formula. The other way is of course to rearrange it, right? So let me rearrange and write the other formula also. Taking these terms to the left side, we'll write 2 times 5 times 6 times cos A equal to 5 square plus 6 square minus 7 square. So cos A is 5 square plus 6 square minus 7 square divided by 2 times 5 times 6. I am purposely not multiplying them. So you can see cosine of this angle is 5 square plus 6 square minus 7 square divided by 2 times product of these two. Easy way to remember, right? So angle A is equal to cos inverse of all this, which is 5 square plus 6 square minus 7 square over 2 times 5 times 6. So that is how you calculate the angle. Perfect. So I'm just showing you the steps so that you can easily connected with the formulas you have already learned, right? So let's find. So we go shift cos inverse. Within brackets, we'll first write the numerator, which is 5 square plus 6 square minus 7 square, bracket close. And this has to be divided by, within the second bracket, I'll write 2 times 5 times 6, bracket close, and the second bracket close for cos inverse. So that gives you the angle as 78.46. Okay, nothing has been mentioned about rounding. Since all these numbers are whole numbers, I'll round this to a whole number, right? So I'll write my answer as 78 degrees, correct? So that is how we can actually solve this question. I hope that's straightforward. Now let's move on to question number 2. Question number 2. Mark is a landscaper who is creating a triangular planting garden. The homeowner wants the garden to have 2 equal sides and contain an angle of 135 degrees. Also, the longest side of the garden must be exactly 5 meters. Determine the area and perimeter of the garden. So let's say that is the triangle we are working with, in which 2 sides are equal. So it becomes an isosceles triangle. And what are we given? We are also given that this angle is 135 degrees. And the longest side is 5 meters. Perfect. So when you read, you should be in a position to sketch your diagram. We need to find both perimeter and area of this particular garden. So perimeter will actually give you the fencing. And we could have a related question with area of how much soil is needed for the bed, right? So those could be extensions to this particular question. Now first step here is to find the other angles. Now since this is an isosceles triangle, both these angles are equal, correct? These angles are equal. Okay. And how much are they equal to? So let's call this triangle as triangle ABC. So in this case, angle A should be equal to 180 degrees minus 135, and both of them are equal. So their sum should be divided, this should be divided by 2 to get each angle, correct? So that is what we need. So it is 180 minus 135 equal, divided by 2 equals, in decimals, 22.5. So each angle is 22.5 degrees. Now once we have this angle, we can actually find all the sides. We can use now sine law to find BC. So we will use sine law. BC over sine of 22.5 should be equal to the side 5 over sine of 135. Opposite sides, right? So this is sine law. To find BC, we'll just cross multiply and get our answer. So BC is equal to sine of 22.5 over sine of 135, these are all degrees, times 5. Units are in meters. So we have 5 times sine of 22.5 equal to, and we'll divide this by sine of 135. That gives you 2.7. So each side here is 2.7. Now perimeter was the first thing to be found. So let's find out the perimeter. In application question, it could be fencing, and we could have given you cost of fencing. So it is sum of 2.7 plus 2.7 plus 5. So we already have 2.7, right, times 2 and plus 5 gives us the perimeter as 10.4 meters, right? So that is part 1. Now let us see how to find the area of this triangle. To find the area of the triangle, we need the height, right? So I have to drop a perpendicular from B. So let's say this is the perpendicular. Let's call this point as D. Now, to find BD, we could use any one of these triangles. That is the opposite side. This is the hypotenuse, right? So we could use sine of the angle 22.5 equals to BD, the height, over 2.7, the hypotenuse, in the triangle ABD. So we'll analyze triangle ABD. So BD is basically equal to 2.7 times sine of 22.5. So it is 2.7 times sine of 22.5 degrees. That gives us 1.03. Let's keep it 1, right? So, okay, we'll just keep it 1. So we'll take it as 1. So height equals to 1 meter. So from here we can find the area of the triangle. Area is half base into height. Base is 5 and height is 1 unit. So which is half of 5 times 1, correct? So 2.5 meters square. So that becomes the area of this particular triangle. Clear? So that is how we could solve such a question. So we applied once cosine law and now sine law. Let's move on and take solution of question 3. Question number 3. Two ships A and B with underwater sonar have located the wreckage W of an old ship on the seafloor. The ships are on the opposite side of the ship, that is the wreck. So we'll call this as W, right, of an old ship. When the distance AB between them is 8,000 meters, the angle of depression to the wreck is 18.5 degrees and 56.5 degrees respectively. To the nearest meter, determine the depth of water above the wreck. So first step is to sketch the diagram, right? So let's say these are the locations A and B of the ship. Now, from here, one angle is, let's say, 56, the other one is 18. Okay. So let's call this point as A, this point as B. The angle A is 18.5 degrees and B is 56.5 degrees. The distance between A and B is given to us as 8,000 meters. We need to find the height or the depth of the wreck W. So let's call this as D, capital. Okay, I want to call this point, this is B, W. Let's call this point as V and D the depth. Okay, let's use lowercase. So that is the question for you. You can always pause the video, answer the question. Let us see how to solve it. So first step is, let us find out the angle W itself. So angle W is equal to 180 degrees. Take away these two angles, right? 18.5 degrees, take away 56.5 degrees. So we get 180 minus 18.5 minus 56.5. That gives you 105 degrees. So this angle here is 105 degrees. So we have a combination of side, opposite side and angle known. So we can use sine law. So let's find AW. So we'll use AW on the top. Side opposite to angle 56.5. So let me write here sine 56.5 should be equal to 8,000 over sine of 105 degrees. So AW is equal to sine of 56.5 degrees divided by sine of 105 degrees times 8,000. Okay, let's calculate. So 8,000 times sine of 56.5, and we are going to divide this by sine of 105 degrees. That gives us the answer as equal to 6906.4. So that becomes this length, 6906.4. So once we know this length, we can always solve the smaller triangle, since this is a right angle triangle, correct? So let's solve this triangle and find the depth. So we'll now solve the triangle AVW. Perfect. So in this particular triangle, to find depth, we have to use these two things. So sine of 18.5. Opposite side D, which we want to know, and the hypotenuse, which is 6906.4. So the depth is equals to 6906.4 times sine of 18.5 degrees. So we already have 6906.4. We'll multiply this by sine of 18.5. So we get the answer as 2191.4. So nearest meter will give us 2191 meters, correct? So that becomes the solution of this particular question. So the depth is 2191 meters. So I hope that's absolutely clear. Now let's take up question number 4, which is a thinking question. Question number 4. A line from P 30 intersects the circle x square plus y square equals to 169 at points A and B. Determine the length of the chord AB if the line makes an angle of 160 degrees with the positive x-axis. So we have a circle here whose equation is given to us. Center is 0. So let me draw the axis. This is the x-axis and that is the y-axis. Now what we have here is another point on the x-axis. That 30 means a point on the x-axis, right? So from the point P, which is 30, we'll draw, let's select this, okay, a line, and this line is at an angle of 160 degrees. So this angle here is 160 degrees. Is it clear? And these 2 points are the points A and B. So now I hope the question is absolutely clear. You can actually solve the question and then look into my suggestions. Perfect? Okay. Here is how we are going to solve. Now this is 160 degrees, so the acute angle here is going to be 20 degrees. Correct? Let's call this point is already given to us as P. So we know the angle APO equals to 180 degrees minus 160 degrees, which is 20 degrees. Now, how do we get the chord length AB? Now, this is a very tricky position, and to solve this, we have to do a bit of construction. Now, this is very critical. Look at it carefully. Just connect these points with O. Then what do you get? It is important to note that both is the radius, right? These are the radius. The circle is x square plus y square equals to 169, which is 13 square. And so these lengths are 13 each. Now, if you look into it, then the triangle AOP, let's try to solve the triangle AOP. We have one angle and the opposite side of 13. So from here, we can actually find, we also know that this side is 30, since the coordinates of point P are 30, 0. So we know OP. So in this triangle, we know OP is equal to 30, right? We also know that OA is equal to 13 and the angle at P is 20 degrees. So the opposite side is known. We have this. We can find the angle at A. So this will help us to find the angle at A. So we can say sine of angle A over the opposite side 30 equals to sine of 20 over the opposite side of 13 units. So that should give you the angle A, right? So from here we get sine A is equal to 30 over 13 times sine of 20 degrees, correct? So A, the angle A is sine inverse of 30 over 13 sine of 20 degrees. Is that clear? So that is how we are going to find the angle A. So let's figure out this number first. So we have 30 divided by 13 times sine of 20 degrees. And we'll do sine inverse, right? So this is 0. Let me write here, 0.7892. Now we'll do inverse of this, sine inverse of our answer. And what we get here is the angle A, which is equal to 52.1. So that is the angle A. Now, if this is 52.1 and this is an isosceles triangle, so the angle B should also be equal to 52.1. Correct? So once you know angle A and B, we know the angle AOB also, right? So that gives you, since this is an isosceles triangle, so both are equal angles, correct? Now from here, let's look into the triangle AOB. So here we know angle A equals to angle B, which is equal to 52.1 degrees, both of them. So now let us first find angle AOB, which is equal to 180 degrees minus 2 times 52.1 degree. So that is 180 minus 2 times 52.1. 75.8 degrees. Now we can again apply sine law, correct? We know this angle and we can find what AB is. So AB over sine of the angle calculated, 75.8 degrees, should be equal to 13 over sine of the angle, which is equal to 52.1. Correct? So from here, the length of the chord AB is equal to 13 times sine of 75.8 degrees divided by sine of 52.1 degree, correct? So let's find this. So we already have 75.8. Let's find sine of this. So sine of our answer, we'll multiply this by 13 and then divide by sine of 52.1. So that gives us 15.97 or 16. So we get this as equal to 16 units. So the length of the chord is 16 units. So now we can write down that the length of the chord AB equals to 16 units. So I hope the solution is straightforward. You must have noticed that in all the 4 questions which we have taken, we didn't give you a diagram. So you have to learn how to sketch a diagram for the given scenario. That is one of the most important things. Relatively, these questions are simple. In test 2, we'll take slightly difficult questions based on sine law and cosine law. However, I hope these 4 questions give you a good start. Feel free to write your comments and share your views, and if you like and subscribe to my videos, that'd be great. Thanks for watching and all the best.